This is Good Evening San Diego.
So in light of this newly proposed legislation, many people are asking, is protesting at Supreme Court justices' homes subject to legal action or possibly criminal charges? Criminal defense attorney Vic Bajaj joins us now to talk a little bit more about this. Let's just weigh this, right? Because there's freedom of expression, freedom to assemble, but then you have people in front of a judge's house. That can be intimidation, and that can be very scary for a judge.
Well, intimidation and threatening, and those are elements that we've discussed briefly that are available to us in federal law. And one thing to understand is just because picketers, protesters, rioters, however they're named or called or labeled in this particular scenario, are not arrested. They don't have handcuffs on them that very night and having to bail out the next day. That doesn't end the story. When we look at things like the January 6th incursion into the U.S. Capitol, it wasn't until months later that you have hundreds of people indicted with an information or an indictment in federal court. Because there are specific federal statutes that deal with this type of conduct, you can bet your bottom dollar it will take a while for the investigation to continue, as it should. The one thing we cannot risk is judges changing their decisions based upon law because they can't go out and throw their trash out without being harassed by citizens.
So why don't you think, I mean, it seemed like these people were out in front of these justices' homes, but it didn't seem like anything really happened to them. Was it just maybe they didn't realize what was going on at the time and it was kind of new?
Well, it could be. And again, I would say investigations are not always instantaneous. Investigations can take a long period of time. And when we see a federal investigation versus a state or a local investigation, I always say that the feds do their investigation and they'll knock on your door when their entire case is already provable to them or the U.S. Attorney's Office. Whereas local law enforcement will make a detention or a stop when you make an illegal right turn, and they may say, hey, you have something in your trunk that you shouldn't have. So that's more of an instantaneous, opportunistic interaction with individuals. The timing is the important thing here, Logan, and we can bet, again, our bottom dollar that there is an investigation and the facial recognition information has gone over to the federal government.
Is there a difference between, say, a justice on the Supreme Court, I would think, versus a judge or maybe a school board member or a mayor or maybe the police chief? I think we've had mayors and police chiefs have protests come up in front of their homes. Just describe the differences there, if there are any.
Well, practically speaking, when our finger's on the pulse of what's happening on the ground, there is no difference. However, what we talk about here is sovereignty. Does the state have the jurisdiction to enforce these laws, or does the federal government, the national government, have the authority to enforce the laws? When you deal with federal actors, such as United States prosecutors, U.S. attorneys, federal judges, those on the circuit court or district court, or surely on the United States Supreme Court, the federal laws really come into play and the nexus is clear. So the difference in conduct is inconsequential. The difference in enforcement is something that is of great consequence.
Seems like there's already laws on the books and now Congress is kind of getting involved too. Why do they need to get involved? It seems like we've already got lots of U.S. code sections that describe the situation.
Protection. Yeah. You know, the laws protect after the fact. Laws protect not in a preventative manner, but in a reactive manner. And so what this bipartisan agreement is saying to everyone in the public is, don't do it. We don't care if you don't agree with the decision, or if you agree with the decision, you cannot harass or threaten the United States Supreme Court justices. And so that's what the focus of this is. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. So if some of those picketers or those that may have been harassing the judges or their families think it's over, it really isn't over. It's just starting. But Congress had to take action to protect the justices and their families, more importantly.
Do you think judges and justices will somehow get their address out of public purview? I mean, I'm actually surprised that you could just find where Justice, Sotomayor lives, for example.
Well, so many of these individuals now, especially the younger generation, who have the ability to access either the dark web or the light web, as you may say. Right. You put a keyboard in front of an individual that knows how to navigate cyberspace, they will find that information. It's almost impossible to cloak that information, as we just saw with this example here.
All right. Vic Bajaj, good to see you, Vic.
Thank you, sir.
In
Pleasure.
person, in the studio. It's been a few years, I think.
That's right. Glad to be back.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate all the insight, too.